Hi, this is Bob Roth, Managing Partner and Co-Founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we have been providing in-home supportive care services for our older adult population right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Since 2014, we've been bringing you a show on Money Radio called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. In case you miss our show that airs every Friday at noon, you can catch it right here on our podcast called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. So when you get a chance, listen in and enjoy the show.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants.
It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday. And indeed it is. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park Money Radio Studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. And we've now been podcasting for a long time, almost a couple years now, James. And you can find us on any of the podcasting apps. We ask you to bring our show down, Health Futures, and we want you to like us, review us, and please recommend us. So if you are a veteran listener or if you haven't listened to our show in a while, our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. They do that by listening right here, not to me, but to these extraordinary guests that I get to come to the show. And today's no different. I've got a new friend, and he's in the same space as I am. And, you find people that you just align with almost right away. Your values align. But the other thing is that sometimes you meet people and they emit an energy. And I truly mean that. Just for our listeners today, I get to celebrate another trip around the sun. It's hard to believe I'm catching up to you, Fady. I know you're just a little bit ahead of me, and I reflect on this just because, I've had a lot of interactions with people, and there's some people in your life that just, radiate energy, and this gentleman does a lot. So without further ado, Fady Sahhar, welcome to Health Futures. So glad to have you on the show. And, for our listeners, I did a podcast with you too. So at some point in time, we can talk about that podcast and direct people to that show. But my honor of hosting you here today on Health Futures.
Well, it's great to be with you, Bob. It's when I got to meet you, I know we were like kindred spirits, so we connected very quickly, and we had a lovely visit on my podcast a couple of months ago. So I'm glad to be with you and your audience today.
Well, thank you for being here. And Fady, I would love for you and for our listeners, thanks to technology, we can bring Fady in through the internet and through the phone lines. And, I wish you were here, but I feel like you're here. And for our listeners, I would really love for you to just kind of, describe your background, how you got into the space. You lived a whole different life, and I remember that. I think you and I have some similarities working in consumer products, but I would love for you to take us through that journey, because everyone's been on that journey. And everyone who's in our space has been on a very interesting journey, probably very similar to one you have.
Well, thank you. Yeah, journeys are so similar in many ways, but unique in their own way as well. My journey started by a gift that I got early in life, being I was had polio at 9 months old, and my wife says that's what keeps you humble today. So it's a good thing, I guess. It's I spent most of my life in a wheelchair, but in my adult life, I was very fortunate after coming to the United States. I grew up in Beirut, Lebanon, and came to the United States as a teenager. got to go through college and go Vols. So as we're
Tennessee
getting into
Volunteers.
football
Wow.
season,
Yeah.
uh,
The
so
Volunteers.
it's been a fun journey. I spent the first 25 years of my career working on brands like Hanes and Hefty and Progressive Insurance and learning the consumer packaged goods trade. And at about my midlife crisis was finding that I needed to give back to the community that helped me succeed, and started my own consulting business, and have been working with individuals with disabilities and providers of services for most of my senior adult life. When I started to get that card that gets you a good discount when you're over a certain age. So it's been a fun it's been a fun trip. But the interesting part is that when you look at one's journey, it lines up with the purpose that we're here for. And my purpose was to be an advocate. And so in many ways, I've been fortunate that I've been able to couple my advocacy with the work that I do. So and I think I heard a lot of same kind of things that you went through as an adult with your family. And so that's what we connected on.
Yeah, we did. And full disclosure, Fady is in a chair, and you've been in a chair for how long?
All my life.
all your life. And the advocacy piece is something I remember talking to you early on when we first started talking, and I was just like, wow, I've got somebody that is so passionate about disabilities, older adults, the disadvantaged, and he's in a chair. This is the guy I want to take down to the legislature to talk to senators and people in the House and really help them understand, because some of these lawmakers sit up in ivory towers and they have no concept of what's going on in the real world.
Well, it's amazing. I think advocates in general, when you can speak from the heart, whether you're in a chair or not, whether you're cared for a family member or a friend, or we find that when we're able to show up and speak eloquently about what is needed to care for our individuals with disabilities and older adults, we have a big challenge as a country, and our legislators can make a big difference when they choose to.
They can. All right, so you do a few things, and when did you come into this world and left the consumer product goods world?
So I got into it about close to 20 years ago now.
Okay.
And I got into it by I tell a story that I was invited to bid on a project for a disability advocacy organization to do a strategic plan, and they ended up offering me a job. And on my first day on the job, I said, would somebody explain the difference between private pay, Medicare, and Medicaid? I did not know the difference between those three.
Wow.
And so, 20 years later, knowing how those three, balls are being juggled in order to keep people healthy in the community is a pretty big deal.
And I think that's a great conversation, just because, look, you were a business professional with, at least 20 years of experience before that, 25 maybe. And, I think the layperson out there, today, doesn't know the difference here 20 years later. And that's the biggest challenge that you and I run into, is we come across people that think that home care and in-home supportive care, the work that we do, is paid for by Medicare. They instantly think that Medicare, I have my Medicare, I have the Part A, or I have this supplement, or I have Medicare Advantage. And, and we have to be the guys that say no, no, and no. And that's so hard. And you and I spoke about this a little bit on your podcast, is that most Americans aren't ready for long-term care supports. And when I talk about supports, it's in-home supportive services, or it's assisted living, or any of the DME medical equipment that you might need, you think that you would get, but not necessarily the case.
Well, and that's the complexity of the good things in our life, right? So we're all living longer, and with getting older, all the challenges that I may have started experiencing a form of disability at a young age, but others, all of us, my wife reminds me constantly, everybody has a disability. Not everybody's disability can be seen. And
So
as we get
true.
older,
Yeah.
we face some challenges in the little things in life, the shelves that we haven't been able to reach before anymore, or the fact that the gallon of milk just got too heavy to carry, or the transfer onto the bed that's become more challenging than it ever has before. So, as I look at the support that we need to provide our community, it comes in a variety of ways. And, government paid programs, thank goodness for the safety net they support, and we need that. But the vast majority of our country is getting older and needs supports that are not funded by any of those programs.
Right.
So as families and friends and communities, we need to be the ones that, bring it forward.
I think you hit a great point to conclude our first segment, and I just want to give people some facts, right? We'll just say facts real quick. When we close this first segment, we'll pick it up on the second. The 65-year-old population is doubling in 25 years. The 85-year-old population is going to nearly quadruple. We have 1/3 of our population 65 and older, solo aging. In the community setting, it's 70% plus. And we have 345 million Americans. And in order to sustain this population, every child-rearing female needs 2.1 kids, and we're at 1.63 and declining. Let you soak that in, and we'll come back for a second segment. We'll talk a little bit more. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. And if you're just tuning in, I got Fady Sahhar here in the studio with me. Actually, he's coming in through technology. And when we left off in that first segment, I left some data points just for everyone to kind of chew on. And, I don't want it to seem like it's doom and gloom, but, I will say this, Fady. I think, when we look at businesses and why people create businesses, and, they usually create businesses to satisfy a problem or a need, right? And in my mind, there is no greater need or problem that needs solving in our country right now, and that is in how we're going to care for all these older adults. And, I stated those data points because you were talking about the family network and how important that is. And just so our listeners understand, Fady, is a good friend of mine, recent good friend of mine. And Fady, he resides not here on the West Coast. He does not even live in the Midwest. He lives in the East, and he's got a place in New York. I believe you're down in Florida too. Is it New Jersey?
Yeah.
And maybe even Connecticut, or you were thinking about getting into Connecticut. But I know it's New Jersey, New York, and Florida, correct?
Yeah, well, we have a home in New Jersey and a home in Florida.
Yep.
So those are where we put our heads more frequently. But thank goodness for good hotels across the East Coast. We work across from Massachusetts down to Florida and westward all the way up to Illinois and Michigan. So we do a bunch of work as part of our consultancy to work with organizations, both payers and providers, to make sure that highest quality of care is delivered for the people we care about.
So I think you got several entities. So if you wouldn't mind, just indulge me and our listeners, with the names and what exactly do you do?
What do I do? Well,
I know about Extra Globex. I know that.
You know about Extra Globex. Extra Globex is our consulting company, and within Extra Globex, we provide strategic business development, as well as a lot of consulting associated with negotiating contracts for
Ooh,
value-based payment
yes.
between payers and providers, and those range from the commercial insurance companies, some that are traded on the big stock exchanges, to small providers who are serving the Medicaid space.
Got
And
it.
so we bring them together and help focus our energies around how do we develop better services, help make them affordable for both the payers and the providers, and then facilitating the community networks so we can support family caregivers and the informal supports that exist in our community. So that's our one of our major efforts. Within that, having spent a number of years in marketing, we have as an arm of our business that does marketing consulting and marketing communications. We go by sign off, which is Onward. We call it XG Onward,
Oh, I love it.
and so we do some of that work. That's usually after hours, but that's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
I also have the privilege of being the CEO for an organization in Pennsylvania that's a collaboration of 85 community providers that come together for negotiating with managed care organizations. Care is a unique organization that is focused on community-based organizations rather than traditional healthcare providers who make up your ACOs and IPAs across the country. So that's a fun job that gets me to examine the left, right, bottom side of my brain. But my real passion has been in working with home care agencies. At this time, I have the privilege of working with CareChoice, which is a up-and-coming multi-state provider, and I'm their COO and do a bunch of work in their multi-state development that we do.
You know, I love that you are actually you're the COO, right? So
Yeah.
so you are hands-on, involved in the operations and consulting at the same time, because I will say this, and this isn't an indictment on many of the consultants out there, but there are a lot of consultants that have not operated a business before. That's number one. Number two, the industry has changed. And you and I have had this conversation about it. I mean, the cost of our care is up almost 50% in the last 5-6 years. On a private pay basis, we have headwinds with caregiver, acquisition and finding enough caregivers. There's a lot of change that has happened. COVID changed everything too. So having your hand in the day-to-day operations, and it's Choice Advantage, is that who you said it was?
CareChoice.
CareChoice. I think it's just marvelous. It just gives you a lot more creds, if you know what I mean, because you're dealing with the changes and the challenges that we're all dealing with right now.
And hoping that that experience also makes us a better agency, obviously, but we're also be able to step away and look at it from a 30,000-foot view, and sometimes get down to how many caregivers didn't show up to work today, and what we have to do with that, and how we make sure that the folks that trusted us with their care of their loved ones are actually able to go live their full lives. And for those individuals who need the care, that we've deployed the right person at the right time with the right skills. And the most important for me is how we treat our consumer, and the fact that everyone deserves the dignity of not only being treated well, but also the dignity of risk. That sometimes you have to allow the person to make a couple of steps, not only because while you're caring for them, that sometimes people need to take a little risk in their life, and we're there not to tell them how to live, but to support what they want to do with their life.
And literally, not in the literal sense, but almost metaphorically, to prevent them from hurting themselves or falling. I mean, that is the key. I mean, we want to give them that independence. And It's interesting because, I love the fact that you're focused on customer service. Do you do customer service surveys? Do you have an NPS score? I'm curious to, where CareChoice stands and how you guys are doing. Because obviously the things that I loved about you, Fady, is that you have embraced innovation and technology. And the other part I really loved is the fact that you have, your son involved in the business and having family and I shared with you, and I think you got a chance to meet him, Spencer. No, I talked to you about Spencer, but I have family involved in my business and how important it is to do that.
Yeah, CareChoice is building a model where we are able to reach the consumer where they are, deliver their choice of care in the way they choose it, and so that is a very important part of what we deliver. We employ technology not as a way to take away from what we do, but rather to enhance what we do.
I love that.
So, 10 years ago, when we gave Grandpa a cell phone, it was a treat. And now giving Grandpa a cell phone is an expectation. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we are very conscious of is how we evolve with the times for the people that we serve where they are, and treating them with the respect that they deserve. And it's funny you brought up that I have family working with me. Both my children work with me.
I love
Adam
that.
is my technology guru, and Mandy is my creative brain. So between the two of them, they keep our company in great balance.
Oh, I love that. And that's great that you do have family there to assist you, and you get a chance to spend time with them. And I can't believe time does fly, as I've shared with you. And we're down one half. We're going to get into the second half. We're going to talk about where we see the future going in care delivery in the home. You're listening to the Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're at halftime. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying the show. This is your host, Bob Roth, managing partner and co-founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. If you have any questions about the topics that are discussed during the show, visit us online at cypresshomecare.com or give us a call at 602-264-8009. We are entering now the second half of our show, so stay tuned for more helpful information to assist you with your aging loved ones.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, I've got my friend Fady Sahhar here, coming through technology and innovation. Are you in New Jersey or Florida right now?
I'm in Florida today.
Okay, you're in Florida. What part?
St. Petersburg.
Oh,
lovely St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Where it's a beautiful 80 degrees and not a cloud in the sky.
Well, I was there in St. Petersburg literally almost exactly a year ago to this day. And I was there 5 days before the big hurricane came down. At Bellwether Tower Resort for a mini conference. I'm sure you know where that is. It's that round resort with the restaurant up on top. And I'm sad to say that 5 days later after we left, and I'm going to tell you, Fady, I went for a swim in the Gulf that day, the day before we left. It was so warm. I mean, I literally felt like I was sweating in the water. So, I mean, I can understand how that happened. I mean, they say the warm water can churn up these hurricanes.
Yeah.
And it was just absolutely devastating.
Well, this week.
This week is the year,
Sorry.
right? Yeah. Did you do okay?
Yeah, this week we're celebrating 1 year anniversary of one of the hurricanes last year. So
that's
the fact that we haven't had one yet is a good thing.
Yeah, these days we got to get to November, but you know, I do want to say this. You've had an opportunity to have me on your show before, and I know we did a record and your son helped us do that. Question for you, Fady. How do you like doing live radio?
It's different, It's like usually when I do my podcast, I usually tell my guests, if we don't do something perfectly, we can go back and fix it.
Exactly.
Now I have to make sure I say all the right things the first time out.
Yeah, James has got the button too. So if you say something wrong, he'll hit it.
I won't go way off. I won't go way off track.
Actually, as you can know, there's no delay, so there really isn't a chance to hit that button because you and I are looking at each other, and the voice is coming straight over on the radio, just like we were talking. So, I really want to have a chance to really take a look at where we are going as a society. I gave some numbers at the end of the first segment, and the caregiving is going to only get more needed. And I talk about this often, and I've been talking about this for years. I see a world where home is going to be the center of care. I truly believe that. We can't build enough hospitals. We can't build enough assisted living. And you mentioned the fact that, the family unit and how important that is too. And I think there are ways to problem solve this. And, I would love to hear from you. My listeners have heard me talk enough about this issue, but, from your perspective, and you live in a different part of this country, and the workforce is very different too. I mean, you have a lot more people of color than we do as workers, and you have a lot more people that because of the ethnicity of some of the workers that you have are able to do live-in care, and we don't really have that luxury here. In California, it's impossible to do it because if you work someone more than 9 hours, they're in overtime. So it costs $1,000 a day to get live-in care, but here in Maricopa County, it's like $600 or $700 a day. It's still a lot of money. So what do you see for our future?
Well, so as I look into the future, I have to look a little bit backwards, right? So where we're coming from is that a few years back, institutional care was considered the appropriate way for adults to reach the final stages of their life. What we have learned is that people thrive when they are around people that help them continue to be active and engaged in the life, regardless of sometimes how their bodies feel. Because sometimes the body may, it's like the mind is willing, but the body isn't able to follow through on it.
So give up tennis and play pickleball, right? I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, or in my case, give up basketball and just be satisfied with rolling for 3-4 miles a day.
Wait, hold on a second. You played murder ball?
Do I say what?
Don't they call basketball and wheelchairs murder ball?
Yes.
Yeah, murder ball. You played murder ball? Wow.
Yeah, I used to. I don't. Not anymore. I like my knuckles too much.
I've watched that before, man. They're badass. That's a very physical game.
You have to be, and you actually have to be coordinated because they don't make that basket much lower than the average person's basket. So,
right, and you got to move with one hand and shoot with the other.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And be careful that somebody's ramming into you from the other side. So.
Exactly. I would imagine you've had a few knockdowns. I've seen that sport. That's really, really, really
physical. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of fun. But it's also like everything else, I think, in life, we tend to forget that a person with a physical disability is able to do a lot more than we give them credit for. Right? And the same thing for an older person who's aging at home. We all of a sudden want to have them revert to the baby stage. We want to take care of them, take care of all their every need, and that may be necessary for some. However, I think most people, as they age, they want to be given the opportunity to do as much as they can. And for that, we need to put them in environments where they're able to thrive. And so environments like staying at home or in the appropriate level of care in a continuing care community, or whether it's independent living followed by assisted living before they are relegated into some kind of a skilled nursing facility. So I believe that we have to look to the future and consider the various ways we provide support to our older adults, and as they, so I do a lot of work in government-funded programs, Medicare and Medicaid, and they're much more necessary than as a basis for our older community as they grow. And we need to acknowledge that those are essential services, because most states, actually the federal government, makes it an entitlement to end up in a nursing facility if a person cannot afford to care for themselves in their own home.
Mm-hmm.
And that is probably the most expensive setting we can put the person.
100%. I love that you are so active with these government programs. And, I think I shared with you before we started our program that I just got back from Dallas, and the Home Healthcare News conference, the Futures Conference, was there. It's put on by WTWH, I think that's the parent company, and they acquired a publication called HME Business. So they put them both together for the very first time. And the editor, Bob Holly, asked me if I would speak on one of their panels. And I mentioned the word that I see a world where home is the center of care. And the biggest problem we have is that less than 5% are ADA compliant homes here in this country, and less than 1% are able to handle wheelchairs. So, I think the biggest challenge we have is that how do we make home the center of care and make it so that it is ADA and wheelchair compliant? And I really think it requires collaboration. And, I really appreciated Bob asking me to serve on this panel because I was there with HME providers. And I used the name providers, but our segment was about suppliers versus providers, right?
Right.
And is HME a provider or supplier? And I knew I was going on to this panel, and I asked ChatGPT. And it was very interesting because, provider, the first thing they talked about was physician, and they talked about therapists, and they talked about home health, and they talked about hospice. But when they talked about when they talked about supplier, the first thing up there was HME, medical equipment and oxygen. And I really think there's a collaboration effort that could really be achieved with, obviously, remodeling bathrooms and remodeling homes to make them compliant. I think there's something there, Fady, and you and I can talk about that offline.
There's a lot there.
There is a lot there.
There's a lot there.
Because, and home is where people want to be. Just plain simple.
And to that point, Bob, that we are also seeing collaboration between home modification companies and assistive technology companies.
Exactly.
Where
we're gonna leave off on that because we got 5 seconds before we break. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're down 3. We got one more. Fady Sahhar's in the house. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We're in our 4th segment here. I got Fady Sahhar here, coming through technology, and I got to tell you, Fady, I feel like I'm ready to play a basketball game when I hear that music, right? It sounds like the Phoenix Suns.
I know, sounds like a challenge.
There you go.
There you go.
It's Friday, baby. It's Friday, and it's my birthday. And you know what? Just before we went back on the show, I had to take this phone call from my mother-in-law. Now, my mother-in-law lives in Philadelphia. Get this, she's 87 years old. And she still works 5 to 6 days a week.
Wow.
And that is amazing. She is a super ager, still working. She would work 7 days a week, but I don't think they will let her work that long. But this is a big shout out to Willie Lorber. She's my mother-in-law. She called me to wish me a happy birthday, and that's really special.
Wow.
And between my wife and I, Susie and I, she's the the last of the Mohegans. She's the last one, and we're actually celebrating my daughter's wedding in 2 weeks. It's two weeks from tomorrow, and it's really wonderful that we can do that, and you can have that generation still there, and not only be there but participate. So she's a super ager. Big shout out to my mother-in-law Willie. Thank you for the phone call. So Fady, we're talking about the future, right? And we're talking about the fact that these homes aren't ADA compliant. Less than 5%, less than 1% can handle a person in a wheelchair. You were talking about remodifications, and you've got some experience in this, and certainly living in the disabled community like you do, the need for this. So how do we do this? And what have you seen?
So there's some really good stuff going on that is combining the home modification aspect with the assistive technology and the smart home technology. Where I'm involved with a group in the Philadelphia area, the English Foundation, that does just that. They bring together their social determinants of health and combine them with their assistive technology subject matter experts. And they go into a home and can transform it from something that would be virtually impossible for a person to live in by themselves to having a much higher level of independence.
Right.
And it's amazing how that technology has evolved and how much cheaper it is than we think. And it's not just Alexa. It's not just a doorbell. It's not just Ring. It's a lot. You can really put in place technology that makes it easy for grandma and grandpa or for Fady to actually be able to live in their home safely. And when they need help, they can reach out for the right person to come in.
Right. It is fascinating to see
where
we are.
We need to push for that. We need to continue to push for that because, like a lot of other technology, we take it for granted after it's become commonplace. But a lot of this technology that's now available is not nearly as nascent as we think. So I hope that we can encourage the payers, both the government payers as well as the government program payers, also the Medicare and the commercial insurance payers, to start adopting those programs that can really make a difference in an individual's independence.
We're just on the tip of the iceberg with the remote monitoring. I mean, that stuff is just fascinating, and I've got a new technology that you and I will talk about offline that is just it is amazing that a device that is not connected to a human that can detect blood pressure, it can detect respirations, it can detect everything. I mean, that's where we are. We're almost at the Star Trek level. I mean, it is amazing. But
the Jetsons, come on.
The Jetsons. But I know that we talked about those, but the home modification stuff is the one that is going to be the one that we need to find partners, and we talked about it at the end of the third segment, collaborating with others to be able to deliver that. And for me and people like Clear Choice and others, we need to be able to have these partners in our community, because the first thing that we really run into challenges with our older adults is the bathroom. If they're living in a home that was built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe even into the 80s, typically a shower's a bathtub that you got to step over, and that's not something an older adult can do and do very easily. And we've seen the ads,
safely.
And do it safely. And we've seen the ads for Rebath and others, but each one of our communities do have people that do these home modifications. And I think that if I were going to, when you look at businesses, right, and you look at organizations, and you look at, when you see a young professional, young person that's graduating college, what are you going to do? I typically say, what need are you going to solve, right? What needs solving? That one, and for our listeners that are listening, if you want to get into the home modification business, I think it's going to be a huge business over the next 25 to 30 years for sure.
I want to tell you a quick story. I know we're coming close to the end of our show here, but one of my colleagues at Inglis was telling me how they needed parts for a bathroom, and they used a 3D printer to create that part in order to complete the job that day.
Isn't that crazy?
So I think the inventiveness of the people we engage in this industry is as important as some of the huge, innovation and technology. Because this young man says, I've got a 3D printer. I can download the specs for this part. And within half an hour,
He printed
had
it.
himself a part.
Wow.
He printed it.
Wow. So I know I talked about when you first got onto the show that, you get attracted to people that, emanate energy. And Fady, you have a great energy about you. And I know you work hard in your consulting business, and certainly as COO of your home care business that you work in. I think one of the things I've learned in life, and it's taken me a little bit longer to learn this, is to get that life-work balance. And, you seem to be able to do it. You got a couple years on me, and you're looking sharp and spry. And, I know you got a big trip ahead of you. But, as we wind down the show, I mean, what is that secret? What's the secret sauce to doing what you do and getting motivated to do the kind of work we do? And I'm really excited about your big trip you got coming up, but please do
I'm
share.
very excited about my big trip. But before I get into that, happy birthday. I hope you're celebrating a lot after we're done with this.
You bet I am.
Today. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what is important, I think, for me is knowing that even doing a show like this with you is getting the word out to people of how important it is to care for individuals who really need our support, and how we can make a difference in the small things we do.
Right, we can. And what is it you do for you?
What do I do for me?
Yeah.
I
mean, you don't play
well.
you don't play murder ball anymore, and you say you say
Well,
you go out for a ride for like 3 miles, right? You said something like that. Yeah.
And I've got children and grandchildren that can be a real joy. They live very close by in Florida, so that makes it very special. My wife and I travel very well. We enjoy vacations, and we're about to embark on a big one. And but mostly, I find that nurturing my energy comes from looking at the successes we do in our community.
I love it.
And it's my success. I'm very grateful for being able to be successful in my life and living the life I wish. But I also find that for whom much is given, much is expected.
I wrote a column about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, and the title of the column was "Not Done Yet: Retirement versus Purpose." You're staying with the purpose thing, right? Are you retiring anytime soon?
Every year I look at it, it seems to be 5 years.
You hear the music, Fady Sahhar, and you become one of my best friends, and you're my newest friend, and I really have enjoyed having you here on the show. Giving you a real quick plug, what's your podcast, and how do we find it?
Our podcast is the Care Payments Podcast. You'll find it at carepayments.com, and you can visit there and subscribe. We would love to have you there, and if you're interested, just look us up at extraglobex.com.
Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. And Fady, thank you for joining me. Take care.
Thank you, Bob.
Alrighty.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.